Ladies and gentlemen, Brandy J's podcast, A Voice to be Reckoned With, would like to thank you for making the right choice in choosing a podcast that moves a nation. And now, here she is in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey there, everyone. You're tuning in with me, your host, Brandy J, for A Voice to be Reckoned With. And today we have a really good show. We have Rick Soetebier here with us, and he is here to talk to us about making better choices. He's a relationship coach, and you don't want to miss this. I'm pretty sure we can all use a little something, to make our lives, our relationship lives better, don't you think? And if not, maybe you know somebody that does. So, why don't we just go ahead and tune in and welcome Rick Soetebier. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning back in. You're here with Brandy J, the Voice to be Reckoned With. And I have here with me Rick Soetebier. He is a relationship coach, and he is here to let us know what he does and give us some really good info. Hey, Rick, are you there?
I'm here, Brandy. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm terrific.
That sounds good. I'm so happy to have you here, and thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you. So Rick, can you do us a favor, and can you please let the listeners know, as a relationship coach, what it is that you do?
Sure. In its simplest form, I work with singles to help them make better decisions about the people they date and the relationships they get into. And I got into this about 7 or 8 years ago, and I had gone through a divorce, and I was sitting back and just thinking about all the problems with my marriage and the mistakes that I made and the mistakes that my ex made. It takes two to tango, as they say. So, when you point the finger at someone else, you've got 3 pointing back at you. So I obviously recognized that I made mistakes, and so that was kind of the ball that, or the thing that got this whole ball rolling, or the process rolling for me, is sitting back and looking at what happened, what I could have done better, what processes might have helped, and what things wouldn't have helped. And to make a long story short, and to take a step back, I've been a student of self and relationship improvement for over 35, probably 36, 37 years now. And,
okay.
Even back then, as I was going through my divorce, and that was 10 years ago since I've been divorced, I was recognizing all the things that I had done wrong. And I talked to people continually. And even today, I've talked to literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and we all tend to make the same mistakes. We get these blinders on, or we're not paying attention to the relationship and seeing the red flags that come up. So that kind of prompted my thinking. And at the time, that in the news, they were talking about, the rising level of divorce. And I thought, there's got to be a way of figuring this out. And so, to make a long story short, I ended up co-authoring a book on dating and relationships based on my experience, based on the studies that I've done and the research that I've done, and the things that I was learning about myself. So it all kind of came together at about 6 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and here I am.
Wow, pretty awesome. And then this all came from your own experience too, and so that's that's a cool way that you processed everything too, and really took a step back to see what Well, instead of I guess that's where the insanity probably broke. Like we just tried to see what you could have done differently, you know?
Well, I did look at what I could have done differently, and I think most of us go through this if we're serious about figuring out what went wrong. I spent the next 2 years after my divorce, thinking, could I have done something differently? What if I would have done that? What if, and beating myself up for not trying harder and thinking, I should have done this. But in the end, even to this day, I can talk to my ex for about 2 minutes and then remember, yeah, that's why I'm divorced. So this was something that was inevitable. But and don't misunderstand me. My ex and I had some really great times, especially early on. She gave me a great daughter, and which I wouldn't have had I not been in this relationship or in this marriage. So I mean, I can't bash my ex, and I can't bash that marriage. We ended up with problems, and as many folks do, and they were problems that we just couldn't work out. So, and I'm never, if you're married and listening, I'm never a proponent of divorce. If there are ways to work things out, I've seen God work miracles in relationships and and bring people together again. I just couldn't find that. And so, we parted ways, and it was a process of learning and growing. But when I was separated and looking at getting back into the dating world, I thought, this is going to be a piece of cake. I'm going to get divorced 9 months after I'm out of my divorce. I'm going to be with my soulmate, and the world is going to go on, and it's going to be all unicorns, butterflies, and rainbows. And I'm 10 years divorced now. So obviously I had a few things to learn along the way.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So that's how you became, a coach and everything. And so,
right.
What would you say, what is your, you find that's your age bracket that you work with, that you help?
Well, generally, my target market is age 40 and above, really. But the information that I teach, and the reason I focus on that market is because I was a financial advisor, and that was also my target market, is the 40 and above. And I found that for me, those folks are easier to work with. But that being said, everything that I teach is applicable from 18 to 80. And so I teach just a very basic, fundamental principles of dating and relationships and how to make them work. Because as I was going through and getting my divorce, and working through my first couple of years of being single, I recognized that I can look back at the first couple of months that I was dating my ex, and I can go back and see the red flags back then, just early on in that relationship. But we get so wrapped up in infatuation and raging hormones that we ignore the red flags. And so in teaching folks, whether you're 18 or you're 80, we have to be able to step back from that infatuation and the raging hormones, because we all know, that those take over, and it's Katie bar the door.
Yeah, so true.
So
true. I mean, but like, how does one know what the, because I had a friend who used to say this to me the other day. We're talking about something, and she said, well, Brandy, she's like, how do you talk to somebody that doesn't know their sleep? It was like we were talking about like delivering a message to somebody, and she said it that way, like some people, don't know that they're asleep, but they need to be waking up,
Uh-huh.
So I was like, no, that's a good one. Like, some people don't know. So I say that because how do you always know that is a red flag. It would be our normal hue, that comes with us, our instinct that says this isn't right. Or like, what if we
Sure.
don't know that's a red flag?
Well, and here's how I approach that. That's a great question, Brandy. What I do is I teach one of the fundamentals of dating and looking for your soulmate. And let me stop here for just a second. I truly believe in soulmates. And whether you believe in soulmates or not, I believe they exist. And we have multiple, but in the course of our conversation, even in my book, we interchangeably use the term extraordinary relationship and soulmate. So I look at them as one and the same. So if your audience, if you're listening, if you don't believe in soulmates, we'll talk about it as an extraordinary relationship. But to get back to the question, I teach everyone that we have to go back to the very basics. We have to be crystal clear about what we want in a relationship. If we don't know, it's like any other goal in life. We know when we want to retire. We know what kind of car we want to buy. We know what kind of house we want to live in. We shop. We know what kind of TV we want to buy or what kind of computer. We do research. We think about these things. We say, what do I want it to do? And you need to do the same thing with a relationship. And I know that sounds really analytical, and it probably is. But if you start going out and dating without knowing exactly what you want, you're going to end up in relationship after relationship after relationship and have no clue why they're not working out. What I found is that when you are focused, when you make your list of must-haves, and your must-haves I define as those characteristics that are non-negotiable to you in a relationship. These are non-negotiable. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, I forgot. I apologize. I forgot to turn my phone off. If there's something that would be nice to have, that goes on a separate list. The must-haves are a list of non-negotiable characteristics, and they need to be written in a positive format. And the reason they need to be written in a positive format is science shows us that you get what you focus on. And if I told you to, if we're talking about looking for somebody to date, and more often than not, I'll have people come up and tell me, well, I don't want a smoker. Well, what's the first picture that comes to mind? Somebody sitting there smoking. So when you focus on, when that's the picture you're giving your brain, that's what you're going to find. And I've had people come up to me in workshops and say, Rick, I swear I would never date a smoker. And I ended up dating one for 5 years. And he promised me time and again that he'd quit, and he never quit. Well, that's because you were focusing on no smokers. And so when you create your must-have list, you should phrase it in the positive. And in the case of a smoker, it must be smoke-free. So it's very easy to flip some of the negatives into a positive. In fact, I just started dating a woman, and we were going through my list of must-haves, and I got to the last one, which was must be smoke-free. She looked at me and said, "What kind of smoke?" And so we both instantly knew right there it was over, because I'm just not into drugs, and I'm not making any statement about positive or negative about drugs. It's just not in my life and not in my wheelhouse. So when you share these things, it opens up the conversation to a lot of different topics. But anyway, and then you have to have your list of must-haves, or excuse me, deal breakers. And that should be a relatively short list. For mine, I can list there basically 3 things: cats, tats, and porn. No cats, no tattoos, no pornography. So it's pretty simple. And the reason you want to have those lists is because just like we were talking about, how do you know? Well, when you're with somebody that you're really attracted to. There may be some great physical attraction. There may even be some intellectual connection. You can step back from the infatuation and raging hormones of that budding relationship and say, okay, does he have this? Does she have that? Does he have this? Does she have that? And if there's anything missing on your list, and you're not going to find it all out on your first date, but you can, or even the first couple of dates, it'll take some time depending on how long your list is. But you can start just in average conversation or just casual conversation. You can find out a lot about somebody, what they like, what they don't like. What was your favorite vacation? How do you get along with your family? Do you have pets? You can find out all these things, in very short order. And you can start looking at your list and saying, oh, he has everything that I'm looking for and none of my deal breakers. And you can usually figure this out in the first 30 days. And that at that point, you can say, yeah, he's worth or she's worth pursuing further. Or you can look at it and maybe in the first couple of dates say, no, this isn't going to work. And so that's how you really address but how do you know? Because because you have the things that the list of things you're looking for. And when you start working on your must-have list, you'll go through and say, oh, I've got to have this, 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 and this. And you say, okay, that's the list. Well, no, it's not, because what you're going to do is you're going to hear a song. You're going to be in a restaurant. You're going to be somewhere. You're going to do something. Say, oh, or somebody's going to say something. Oh, I want that on in my next relationship. So your list will continually grow. And as you date, you're going to meet people that aren't the right fit for you, but you're going to find characteristics that say, oh, I like that he opened the door for me. I liked that he was a gentleman. Or I liked that she dressed for me. Or, whatever it is. I like that she cooked for me. And whatever characteristic you find, you can add that to your list. And so the list, and they have to be written. They have to be either. And I always encourage people to handwrite the list, because there's just something about the deepening of the desire when it's handwritten. We can type it out. But there's just something about it gets more ingrained into us when it's handwritten. So that's kind of a long answer to a short question, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's good, because I was really in tune when I was listening. You see, I was quiet, right? I said that I was supposed to be, so you could talk, but I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you could have been sitting there rolling your eyes. I don't know.
I'm like taking it in. I'm like,
Oh, well, good.
Okay. So this is my question. How I'm sorry, because I really was so like applying that to myself that I forgot I was the host for a minute. Okay.
Well, and that's a good thing, Brandy. This whole conversation should be getting you to think, getting your audience to think, and what is it that I really want in a relationship? Because again, like I said a few minutes ago, when we start diving into relationships and go out and start dating, most people, I would guess 90 to 95%, don't know what they want. Now, that same 90 or 95% can tell me exactly what they don't want. But so finding what you do want doesn't necessarily mean you're looking for the opposite of what you don't want. So there's a lot of work to do this right. And part of the point of doing this whole exercise, and it takes a little bit of time, but you have to think about the fact that most of your listeners most of you are going to are going to be looking for a lifetime relationship. And I contend, coming from the financial planning world, that most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do retirement, much less than they do thinking about their next relationship, or a relationship that's going to last a lifetime. You know, we kind of stumble through life and hope we trip across the person of our dreams, and unfortunately, most of us end up settling for less than extraordinary, for any number of reasons. It could be that we get into this relationship and we've been in there 2, 3, 4 years and say, yeah, this isn't a great relationship, but number one, I might not find anyone better. I don't want to start looking again. He's okay. He treats me okay. You know, there could be any, but it's still, you're settling for less than extraordinary. And I propose that we all can have extraordinary if we just want to take the time and make the effort to find extraordinary. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so. That's pretty awesome, actually. Wow.
Well, thank you.
So I was gonna say, then I thought about it before I said it, but I was gonna ask you originally, when you get when you get somebody, a client, and you work with them, have you 9 times, I'm pretty sure almost 10 times out of 10, there's somebody that have always been making the bad choices when it comes to relationships versus have you ever gotten anybody that they just started that they came to you fresh, kind of like, teach me, because I don't, they haven't even started yet, but then you said age 40, on up, so that would mean they've already been.
Yeah, they've
figure out what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, and I don't get many younger folks because they tend to think they've got all the answers. They're too busy doing what they do, and rarely have the, well, for lack of better terms, the common sense to ask for guidance or coaching or mentoring, as
That's
it were.
true.
And, think about when you were 15, 18, 20 years old. How much did your parents really know? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And, the older we get into our 30s and our 40s. Doggone it, our parents are smart. How did that happen?
Right?
So, when we get to that point, then I think it's that's where people start coming to me. They recognize the mistakes that they've made. And, when you look at the 18, 20, 22, 23, 25-year-olds getting married today, they are so overwhelmed with infatuation and raging hormones that you can talk to them till you're blue in the face, because they know that this is the one.
Right.
They know that they're going to make this work.
But I love him.
I know. Yeah, but I love, that's a great line. Yeah. And it's only when the infatuation wears off a couple of years later that they say, yeah, I don't quite love him.
If they ever did, huh?
Well, it's more infatuation and hormones than real love. And that's when the hard work starts. And that's why I promote doing the hard work up front, because in everything that I've studied, in my own relationship, in my experience with working with people, I've discovered that we don't do the hard work up front. We settle for an okay relationship, and then 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, life throws curveballs at us, and we get stressed, and they're put stress on the relationship, and we don't then we have to start working on a broken relationship. And what I contend is that if we do the hard work up front, we find that right person, and all the pieces fit up front. There's going to be tough times on the back end of the relationship. There's going to be, because again, life happens. Somebody's going to lose a job. Somebody's going to get sick. Somebody's going to pass away. And any number of other things that put stress in our lives. And when you're with the right person, when you're with your soulmate or you're in that extraordinary relationship, you're going to have a partner that's there to help you. They're going to lift you up when you're down, and you're going to lift them up when they're down. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Never am I going to say that it's going to be easy. I'm not promoting rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns here. It just, but when you're with the right person, you've got a mate that's going to be working with you, and you're not always going to agree, but you're going to have common goals and values, and you're going to continue to fight for those things. And sometimes one of us has got to get slapped upside the head and knocked back into reality, but that's all part of making the relationship work. And it's much easier to do it when you have somebody that's on your side as opposed to somebody that's fighting you all the way.
Interesting. So what would you say that I'm just way too interested.
I'm sorry.
You should see me. I'm just like, got my hand on my chin. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I really was taking all this in. I'm really thinking here. I'm like, okay.
Well, and just think, if you're doing that, hopefully your listeners are doing that too.
I hope so, guys. Take this in. Come on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is what I want to say. Okay, so now some people just look up or they just look up, get their soulmate, and then they don't have problems. They make it, or either what percentage, or what would you say are with they're settling versus because it seems like most of the time you have to learn these things to make to actually find this this type of relationship. What I mean? But there are a lot of stories where some people, they get married, and then they make it all the way until
right,
their elderly age and stuff. And I don't know if that always means that they were perfect. They could, they could have been that couple too that settled and just wrote it on out and just never really, they just stuck with it because they didn't want to try anything new. So I wonder, what percentage do you think that really are people that are together and they're meant to be together versus together and they just didn't know how to go out and just settled?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly where you're going. And let me back up with a couple of statistics here. About 60% of first marriages last. They survive. And of those that survive, about 85% are mediocre to just okay. So there's about, of that 60% of marriages, only about 15% are happy soulmate type relationships.
Wow.
So when you boil that down into all marriages, that's somewhere around 12%. That of 10 to 12% of couples that end up happily married.
For that first time they got married.
From the time they got married, yeah. And it doesn't mean they didn't go through hard times or go through troubles, but they were with a partner. They were with they were with that person that's there to build them up and try to fight for the relationship, for the marriage. And when you're in a mediocre marriage, you stay because it's in all reality it's comfortable. it's never hard, or it's never easy to, number one, try to improve the marriage. But, it's, well, that's who I am, or that's who she is, or that's who he is. And, I just have to, I just have to accept that. And yeah, you're married, so there are ways of trying to improve it, but odds are that it's not going to improve unless both of you are willing to work on it. So, and that goes back to what I said a little bit ago, is why it's so important to spend time up front and not dive into relationships just because you're lonely, or just because you want to have a man with you, or just because you want to have a woman in your life. That is the worst reason, because what you'll end up doing is you'll end up spending a year, 2 years, 5 years. I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to over the years that have been in a relationship. They know they need to leave. They know it's not the right marriage, or not the right relationship. And they end up sticking around, and 5 years down the road, then they're finally deciding, yeah, I've just wasted 5 years. And it just breaks my heart when I hear those stories, because, and I can almost guarantee you can go back to the first 30 days and say, yeah, I started seeing the red flags. It wasn't, he had some really great qualities, or she had some really good qualities, but it wasn't all there. The whole package wasn't there. And that's why it's so important to have your must-have and deal-breaker list, so you can step back out of that infatuation and be an adult. And that's so many of us don't want to be adults and take responsibility. We just want it to magically happen, and it doesn't. Yeah. We have to have the adult conversations, and if you've got problems, you need to say, John, this is how I'm feeling when this happens. It makes me it makes me embarrassed, or it hurts my feelings, or whatever's happening. You have these adult conversations, and if it can't be remedied, then you say, John, it's time for us to part ways. You're a good man, or Jane, you're a good woman. But this isn't the right relationship for me. And it's not fair to either one of us for us to not be in an extraordinary relationship. And it's really that simple. That's the conversation you need to have to be able to walk away. And it's always hard. Don't misunderstand me. It's always hard to walk away from a relationship that you've spent time in. Even if it's only been, 4 or 5, 6 months, it can be difficult. So we need to be the adults. We need to step up. And if you're recognizing this isn't right for me, you can't live on the fact that, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I just don't want to hurt him. He's a nice guy. Well, too damn bad. You don't. Who controls your feelings? You do. You don't control his feelings, or he doesn't control yours. If he does, you're giving him that power, or her that power, and that gets into a whole conversation about toxic relationships, codependency, those types of things. Which we're not going to go down that rabbit hole today.
So, Rick, what would you say is I guess the dating period? What would be too long or long enough, if that makes sense, before someone knows that it's not going? Say, for instance, if you date and then you decide to make it official, like how long would one know that they've been waiting too long, or like that red flag, like, no, this isn't going anywhere? Maybe someone's telling you, like, oh, it's not time yet. I'm not ready yet, or you know what I mean? Like, how do you know that that's not just something that is being told to you, or just to maybe keep you at a distance? Or if you're serious, how do you know they're serious or not? Like, when is it time for someone to say, okay, let's take it to the next level, or let's not?
Well, it's hard to put it's hard to put a certain time frame on there. I think in the first 30 days you can determine whether somebody's worth pursuing further or not.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think when you get to about a 6 to 9 month point, you need to be having a conversation. Probably by 6 months, you need to be having a conversation. Are we serious? Are we a couple? Where are we going with this relationship? And if you're not getting a satisfactory response, or you're getting put off, then I think it's time to start evaluating and start setting a time limit. Okay, I'll give it another 3 months, and we'll do this. We'll revisit this, or we'll finish out the year. But I'm not a big fan of waiting. If somebody's not willing to commit to you, I think it's time to very seriously examine the relationship. Look at your must-have list and your deal breaker list. Are all the must-haves there? Are there none of the deal breakers present? And it does take some time to spot some of the deal breakers. A bad temper might not show up every day. It may only show up when somebody's had a bad day at work, or somebody's had a tough day in traffic, or whatever it is. So that sometimes those things don't show up until something major happens. A family member gets sick or dies, and then you get to see what real stress looks like, or how they handle real stress. But then you need to examine the relationship that you've got. Do you have an intellectual connection? Do you have a spiritual connection? And spiritual is important. Whether you're Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, agnostic, atheist, I truly believe you need to be with somebody that's similar to you.
Yeah.
Because you that's going to be a hurdle down the road somewhere. Right now you can say, oh no, it's no problem, I don't mind, but eventually it becomes a problem. And the stories that I've heard, especially from women, that the guy tells her, yeah, I like to go to church and yada, yada, yada. And then they start going to church together, and pretty soon they've moved in together, and all of a sudden he's not going to church as often. He's got something else to do. Pretty soon he's not going to church at all, and she's alone again in church. And that's, if you're not sharing a common spirituality, it doesn't mean you need to be in the same place on your spiritual journey. It just means you need to be moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
And so again, if you're agnostic or atheist, be with an atheist. Don't try to force a Christian to be with an atheist.
That's just insanity right there.
Exactly. That's just asking for trouble. So
all kind of arguments and debate, just not gonna. That's a mess.
That's exactly right. So it's so important to have that spiritual connection. Then an emotional connection, and that develops over time. The emotional connection is kind of like the glue that holds all the other components together. It's liking one another. It's spending time with each other. It's liking to be in somebody's presence, and just looking forward to getting home to them. And being able to share your day and listen to their day, and then you've got the physical connection. And there's two components to that. There's obviously physical intimacy, which, at least if you're a guy, you're going to the sex part of it. But there's more to it than just physical intimacy. There's physical appearance. We want to be men and women alike want to be attracted to our partners.
Yeah.
And so we have to have that connection. Then I firmly believe we have to be able to speak we have to speak similar love language. We don't have to. If you've ever if you've ever read the book, The 5 Love Languages, I think if you haven't, it's a great book to read. And one of the things that I realized after I read that book is my ex-wife and I had completely different love languages. And mine are physical touch and acts of service. And hers were primarily gifts and quality time. And now, as a financial advisor, I spent a lot of time at the office working with clients. So we didn't always have the quality time, and gifts are just, I tell the story in my workshops that I remember as a boy at Christmas time, walking down the main street of my hometown and just struggling to figure out what I should get my mother for Christmas. And it was sheer torture to me because she wouldn't tell me. Oh, and it was that line of, oh, whatever you get me is fine. But no, you can't do that to me. That's not my, and now I know that's not my language. You have to tell me, take me by the hand and show me and write it out, and I'll go get it, or I'll write you a check and you can get whatever you want. But gifts are no, and that doesn't mean I can't give gifts. And I'm sorry, I get really wound up about this. So.
It's quite all right.
I can, and Brandy, if you and I were close friends, or if you and I were dating, I'd walk down the street and I could see something. Oh, that reminds me of Brandy. I'd like to get that. I can do that, but when it comes to birthdays, anniversaries, holiday, Christmas, and whatever it is, it's like, oh, geez, just tell me what you want, because this is torture to me. So anyway, to make a long story short, my ex and I had different love languages, and I contended if you really want a strong relationship and to have it turn into a strong marriage, you need to speak similar love languages. Your top 2 can be flip-flopped, or you might be compatible with each of one of your top 2, and then a couple of the others thrown in, but you've got to have a couple of compatible love languages, because it's so difficult to try to learn. And I liken it to, we're born in the United States. We speak English. If we were to move to France, can we learn the language? Absolutely. Can you become fluent in it? Not for a long time. So you have to be immersed in that, and you have to focus on speaking that language continually. And to me, that's a struggle. And my whole point is that we want to take as many of the struggles out of our path. We want to take the roadblocks out of our way. And so that's why all of these things are important to find in that relationship. And if you're looking at 6 months, 9 months, and looking for that commitment, you need to be looking at all of those things and seeing if those things are there. And if they aren't, and he's hedging or she's hedging, then you should be saying, yeah, okay, this was fun, but it's time to move on. Or if everything is there, then if they're still hedging, you say, well, I'll give it a little more time, but if we're not ready to move forward in 3 months or 6 months, then I'm out. So and I'm just that direct. And I think and I know it's hard for a lot of people to be that direct.
Yeah.
But I think if we stand up and think about what we truly want in a relationship, and if we truly understand what we're looking for in a relationship, then we can start making better decisions about who we're dating and why we're staying in relationships.
Yeah.
And in the end, if it's not working, have the adult conversation and say, Brandy, I love you, but this relationship is missing something for me. And it doesn't make any difference how hard we try to make it work. There's still components here that are missing, or pieces that are missing. And it's never going to be a strong relationship for me.
Totally.
And I can't do that to you. You deserve better than that. And, you're not a bad person. Doesn't make me a bad person. It just makes us real. We both deserve extraordinary. So let's just part ways and go out and find our extraordinary.
Yeah, that's some deep stuff there. Because
you didn't think this was going that deep, did you?
No, I'm liking it though. Because I'm doing that. And I'm really like taking it in, and hopefully everybody else will and listen and and applying it to to myself and I could say that I guess I have some of the things I've probably been aware of or looked at, but possibly turned a blind eye to because I didn't want to, accept the truth, or I was scared to know, what I mean? Just kind of, just probably because if a person looked at it, they'd realize that it's not the right one, you know what I mean? And so that's how you kind of get stuck. So,
Yeah, we hate to admit it's not the right one. And I've had to have the conversation with several women over the years, and I just had somebody have that conversation with me. We dated for about 4 or 5 months off. It was a weird relationship, but she finally said, Rick, I enjoy you. I enjoy spending time. I enjoy our dates, but I just don't see this relationship as a relationship that's going to go long into the future for me. You're just not the guy that I see in my future. And while that stung, I appreciated the fact that, she ended it now. And rather than going, a year, 2 years down the road and then saying, yeah, this isn't it, let's move on. Let's go do our thing, so, and it's never easy. It's never fun. But when you learn how to do it, it takes a lot of the sting out of it. It takes a lot of the pain out of it, especially if you're the one doing the breaking up or the asking to move on. Because we all get nervous and the butterflies and knots in our stomach. Oh, how is he going to react, or how is she going to react? And if you approach it like an adult, odds are they're going to take it like an adult. And if they don't, and this is an important thing for everybody to understand, if they don't take it well, if they start attacking you, or if they start saying, well, you just don't know what you're missing, you don't know what you're giving up, and yada, yada, then right then and there,
yeah,
made the right decision. So that's and those conversations, like I said, are never easy to have, but they're so important.
Yeah, very much so. Wow. What would you say? Okay, so for this to even happen, to be able to, for two people to put these things into action, I guess there would be some things that are on both parts that would have to happen for them to know if it's gonna work. Like, for instance, you have to spend some time together. It can't be like, I see you every once in a while. You actually have to have conversations, and you know what I mean, to really. But then again, if those things aren't even happening much, I guess is that a red flag too?
That's a great question. And I've been having this conversation with a couple of people, especially on Facebook. There's been a couple of questions out there about long distance dating and long distance relationships. And there are some very, and I'll use long distance, but you can live across. I don't know how big San Diego is. I know it's a big city, but I don't know how long it takes you to get across town. But if you're in that close of proximity and you're not spending, quite a bit of time together, if you're not spending quite a bit of time on the phone together, or on Skype or FaceTime or those types of things, there's something there that should be a red flag. That if it's a long distance relationship, obviously that throws in some hurdles. And long distance relationships, I believe there can be some distinct advantages, because you can spend time on Skype, on FaceTime, on the phone, talking to somebody and getting to know them before you introduce the physical contact. And when I mean physical contact, I mean being in each other's presence, being in close proximity. Because what happens is, when you get in close proximity, then the hormones start kicking in, and you start interacting, and it's very easy to get physical, for the sex to come into play. And if sex is introduced too quickly into a relationship, and just for the record, sex should be marriage and beyond, but reality says that 85 or 90% of people are going to have 80% of people are going to be in bed by the 8th date. So I recognize there's some realities there, but the longer you hold off on sleeping with somebody, the more you're going to learn about them. And for those of you that are quick to jump into bed, how many times have you met someone, slept with them, and it doesn't necessarily mean the first date, maybe the 4th, 5th, 6th date, and then the relationship goes for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, boom, you wake up and say, oh man, I wish we wouldn't have slept together. And I can just see the hands going up in your audience right now. Just yeah, I've been there. Why does that happen? And it's because we don't spend enough time getting to know our partner. Yeah. And that's where a long distance relationship can come into play, because you can talk and get to know what their favorite color is, what their birthday is. You can get to know, what their politics and religion are. You can get to know, what their day was like. And if it's the right relationship, you can talk about anything and everything. You can talk about the weather. You can talk about cooking. You can talk about your favorite hobbies or sports, or what went on with your kids or grandkids, or all of these topics and conversations without being in close proximity and letting the hormones take over. But the disadvantage is you have to be able to spend time together, because we all have habits and idiosyncrasies that may drive you absolutely crazy. And I was talking about this yesterday on another podcast, that it might be that how you put the toilet paper roll on the holder, or where you squeeze the tube of toothpaste from. And those are silly examples, but and you can live with those up front, but they may drive you absolutely crazy down the road. And I was asked about opposites. Do opposites attract? Well, they do for a short period of time, and then they start driving each other nuts, because the things you thought were cute and funny and different from anybody that you've ever dated before are the things that are going to drive you nuts in a couple of years. So if you think that opposites attract, you're right. But they'll also, historically, statistically, those relationships last about 5 years. So,
wow.
So,
good stuff. Okay. Man,
I wandered down all kinds of rabbit holes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I know we're getting close here, but I just want to ask you, out of all the people you've worked with, have you had, is there one that you could think of in general that was a complete success story that possibly ended in like marriage or engagement? Or
yeah, I've had several of those that just working with a variety of different people. I've had successes, and I've had failures too. And the there have been more successes than failures, but the one that actually comes to mind is a failure that a friend of mine came to me and said, well, this guy I'm dating, he's an alcoholic and he's living in my basement. We're living there. She had a 2-story house and he was living in the basement. And, what do I do? And I said, well, you got to get rid of him because she doesn't drink. And it was really tearing her up. And I said, you got to get rid of him. You got to get your friends to come and help move him out. And she said, okay. And she's in tears. And 6 months later, I see that she had gotten married to the guy.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
What would she do that for?
Well, she thought she could change him.
Oh.
He played all the right cards and said, oh, I'll change, I'll stop, and yada, yada, yada. And the reality is it continued to get worse. And in less than 18 months, she was divorced. And she came back to me and said, Rick, this is what happened. And at the time I didn't beat her up. I mean, mentally about it and saying, I told you. That was what I was thinking. I told you this wasn't going to work. And now she's on a much better path. And she and I have talked about her dates subsequently and the guys she dates from time to time. And she's much better focused on what she's looking for in a relationship and much more focused on having that extraordinary relationship and not settling. So while that's a failure on the one hand, it's a success on the other because she had to go through that process.
Yeah.
She had to learn it the hard way, and
to actually get it.
She had to get it. She had to get it deep in her soul. And as hard as it was for her to learn that lesson, it was a lesson she had to learn. And no matter what I said, I could not beat that into her. So, that's one of my on the one hand, it's it is a failure that she ignored the advice and followed her heart, even though in her head she knew that this was not good. But then I've had several that I've coached and have known that have gone on to get married and are very happily married. So
awesome.
So you have to, and even some of the success stories have not necessarily gotten married, but they've stayed out of bad relationships. And I think that's as important as anything in this process is to keep yourself out of bad relationships, keep yourself out of the toxic relationships. Because if you're in the wrong relationship, and even if it's just okay, you're not emotionally and physically available for that extraordinary relationship when it comes along.
Yep.
So that, I hope that was a decent enough answer.
Yes, definitely.
It's like I said, it's probably just as important rather than the marriage end of it. It's being able to keep yourself out of the toxic relationships, the mediocre or just okay relationships. Save yourself for extraordinary, and it takes longer to. It takes longer to find extraordinary, but nothing great in this life is ever easy.
No, surely isn't.
So put in that extra effort up front so that you can have the great or the extraordinary down the road.
Wow, that's a big one. I really do hope that everybody takes this in and really just especially the times we're having right now. It's it just shows you how quick life can just change in a second, like in a week.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
absolutely. In a matter of a couple of days.
Yeah. So it's like, just live, just do it. You know what I mean? Do it. Just, I think so many people live, like you said, in fear, and then they don't want to try anything. They would just want to get because it's comfortable. And I always had this theory, like if you're comfortable, that means if you get too comfortable in a situation, that means that you're not. I forgot what I used to say, but it was a way to saying, like, when you're comfortable with something, because you should always be striving to do better or be better. You know what I mean? You shouldn't just be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and Brandy, that opens up a whole new rabbit hole for me, because I think in my last two blogs I talked about what this week, yesterday, or I can't say that. depending on when this airs.
I think today or tomorrow. I'm striving for tonight because I told some people about this.
Oh, okay, great. Well, then in that case, Thursday of this week, in my blog, it was the 10 things women look for in men, and last week it was the 8 things that men look for in women. And one of the things that crossed over was intelligence. And intelligence is sexy.
It is.
It's one of those things that I have never met a woman that didn't love an intelligent guy.
It's true. I love it. You gotta be.
And that's what I'm looking for, is an intelligent woman, somebody that, for lack of better terms, somebody that gets it, somebody that gets me and understands me. And not everybody's going to get me, and not everybody's going to get you, but when you find somebody that gets you, that's pretty incredible. But all the other components have to fall in. And the point here is that men love intelligent women too. So you can't stop learning. You need to keep reading, learning. Yeah. And if you don't like to read, good Lord, grab a CD, book on CD or Audible, or and that you can pop in the player in your car, or in your earbuds when you're on your phone, when you're out walking or jogging or running or just out and about. You can fill your head with a lot of great information, and read some for knowledge, and read some for pleasure. And it makes you so much more well-rounded when you do that. And it just makes you so much more attractive to the opposite sex.
I love intelligence. Like, nothing does. I tell people, like, how you can look at somebody and think that they're possibly like, why did maybe she's appealing and sexy, but for some reason men are not registering that with intelligence. So you're probably like wondering, like, I've tried this and that, and she still won't. Look my way, or she's not giving me the time of day. And like for me, I call myself someone like I'm an intellect. You know what I mean? Like I might have those looks like I'm not, where I'm a woman, just like a woman, But at the same time, that doesn't mean that just because I'm attractive or sexy, whatever, that's not what really gets me. Whatever they're doing over there, I like intellectual conversations, and I read, and I'm always like talking about something that if you can't talk to me about something besides the basic stuff, like what happened on TV last night, or
sports,
you know what I mean, like
hunting and fishing,
like life, like what's the purpose, like what's your purpose, and like who you are when you get down to the core of people, and just I don't know, where you can just talk where you don't even realize it's not even about sex, your genre anymore, that you're a man and I'm a woman. It's kind of like we're just talking.
Exactly. You're able to connect intellectually and have those conversations that stimulate thought and just get you to and one of the things on my must-have list is she must be able to challenge me, and I mean that mentally, where she can make me think and say, I haven't thought about it like that. What if? And so that's huge. Intelligence, and I'm going to say this again, folks. Intelligence is sexy. And so, if you really want to be attractive to the opposite sex, just fill your mind with good things. And oh God, if we've got time, this goes down another rabbit hole, but it's one of the things that I harp on so many times. It's being able to stay in a positive attitude when you're filling your head with good things. Shut off the damn TV and turn off the news and start filling your head with good things, good information. And with all due respect, the Danielle Steele novels are very popular, and maybe they're not as popular now, but when I was married, my ex used to love Danielle Steele, and read something other than trash novels.
Yeah. I've never been into those like romance novels or anything. I've never tried. I just couldn't do it. I was like, I like information, like knowledge stuff,
Yeah, and that's the same with me. I'll read occasionally for pleasure, but I find great joy in learning something new and learning something new about myself. And
or self-help stuff or something.
Yeah, exactly. But I know not everybody's into that. But learn history, learn art, learn a variety of things. Whatever turns you on, or whatever's makes you passionate. And obviously you can tell by my voice, I get very passionate about relationship coaching and making people, or helping people move to the next level. It's very dynamic, but you have to do something. I can only guide you. I'm the guide. You have to do the work. You're the hero of your own story. So you have to continue to develop yourself. You need to, just go to the bookstore, pick up a book and start reading and start learning. And again, filling your head with good stuff. Turn the TV off and for a half an hour a night. And
watch that too much, it'll start making you doubt, like, because on TV they don't really shine positivity too much, and when it comes to stuff like that, it's usually the negative, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The negative parts, and
yeah, exactly. And Brandy, that's why I say, for me personally, I don't even watch news anymore. It's just, I can pick things up on the radio, for in a 3 or 4 minute broadcast. And then I've gotten fairly good at picking out what's fact and what's fictional and what's exaggerated, what's not. And, so it's just, and half the time they could tell me that there was a volcano 10 miles away and I wouldn't know because I just don't pay attention.
Right. I totally get it. I haven't watched the news like in 2 days now on purpose, and then I'll tap in. I'm like, let's see what they're saying now. I tried to tell that to my son the other day. I said, honey, just because they say it, you can't, that's what they tell us. I always talk to him. I said, yeah, that's what they tell us is happening. Just let them know, like, they say that, but how do we really?
But,
and tell us what they want to hear, what they want us to hear.
That's exactly right. And then tell them, now go look at the other side. Go do some research and see if what they say is true. If it is, great. If not, find out the other details.
Yep, you got to go find out for yourself. I tell people, teach yourself, so go find out. You got to teach yourself.
Absolutely.
Yep. So. Oh my, this was just amazing.
Brandy, it's been a hoot. I've loved the conversation, and I apologize if I've rambled on, but
no, that's fine.
You get me going.
I had more. I'm
going, and it's tough for me to stop. Yeah.
You have to have a part 2.
Anytime anytime you want to do a part 2, just let me know. In the meantime, if people want, if you don't mind, if people want more information, you can go to my website, ricksoetebier.com. It's not like it sounds. Brandy will have it posted under in the links to the podcast. And I've got a YouTube channel, and it's, I think that's, I never pay attention to that stuff. I just always share the links. It's Rick Soetebier, relationship coach. I've got a Facebook page. My book, Dating Backward, it's available through my website and under Rick Soetebier ricksoetebier.com/resources. And then it's also available on Amazon and also as an ebook. So
cool. I'll go check that out.
if anybody in your audience wants to just find out more, I have a PDF that I offer. No, there's it's free, and it's the 5 biggest dating and relationship mistakes and how to avoid them. So that's free for your audience.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. I'm definitely gonna we're gonna be reaching out again because I think there's so many, layers. We're gonna see what the show and see, the response and stuff. And obviously I'm gonna be talking about what I learned. And then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. And if you get a lot of questions, we could do a question and answer segment, or from your audience, if they've got questions, or if you're, I'd be happy to interact with your audience's questions and however I can help.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'm gonna ask you one more thing, a short one before we head out.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just gonna say it. Okay, so now, because this is one of my sayings. Now, Rick, let him know. Is he gonna buy the cow if you're giving away the milk for free?
Yeah, that's and that goes back to my conversation earlier.
It's never gonna work, huh?
It makes it much more difficult. And so, ladies, that's and while that I've been verbally beat up by that saying many, many, many years, there is a lot of truth to it. And that's what I said earlier, is when you end up in bed too soon. And again, 80% of couples will end up in bed by the 8th date. Think about that. 8 dates. You really don't get much of a chance to know somebody, especially if this is somebody you're looking to spend the rest of your life with. Yeah. Hold off as long. And guys, this goes for you too. I know it's fun and we all love great sex, but and I know guys feel it too. You sleep with somebody and then boom, you go into your cave because you instantly realize, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And it's a natural biological reflex. And so the idea is just don't give it away too soon, either of you, because the more you spend time getting to know each other, the stronger, the deeper your relationship will be. And that's what you want, is you want that good, strong, deep relationship.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we're going for. Oh man, I know I do. I've always had, I think I was in denial for a minute. I was like, I'm good, I'm over it. But not really. I don't think anybody ever really is. It's just kind of get tired out or scared or just give up. But not me. I'm going to keep going. I'll be 42 this year, so.
Oh, you're still young. You're still a baby. I turned 63 this year, so.
Oh, there you go. Look at you. I'm looking at your picture. You're looking great.
Well, thank you. No, it's I can't take any credit. That's all my parents. So.
Oh man, it's such a good time here. Thank you so much.
Oh, Brandy, thank you so much. I've enjoyed it, and I like I said, I hope I haven't rambled too long, and I've loved our conversation.
Not at all. I tell you, I'm about to get off. When I get off here and sit down, I'm really just, play a little music and just get to thinking here. I got my list. I'm taking my list.
There you go. Start making that list.
Yeah. Why not? Put it off what I can do now. Oh, yeah. I'm doing that today.
There you go. Good for you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to be obviously reaching out and keeping in contact with you. And you are you are now part of the Voice to be Reckoned with family. So you're welcome here anytime. You want to come on and talk or, let us know what's going on or any type of news you have. You're more than willing to. So
thank you very so much, Brandy. I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you. And you enjoy the rest of your day, okay?
I will. You too, dear.
All right. Thank you.
If you want to show your support to the nation during this time of the coronavirus, well, then Anchor is a great way to do that. using the creation tools that allow you to record and edit from your phone and computer is very easy to do. Anchor will distribute your podcast, and you'll be heard on Spotify, Google Cast, so many different platforms. You don't have to do a thing. Anchor will do that for you. Speaking for what you stand for. Use your podcast to let the nation know that your support is there and that you care. Anchor is a free app, and you can find it right on Google Play Store, or go to your web browser and put in anchor.fm. Your podcast can make a difference right here in Anchor, and it's free. So don't forget, Anchor. Go and download it now. And there you have it. Thank you, Rick Soetebier, for all of your information. It was wonderful. Guys, thank you for tuning in. A Voice to Be Reckoned with Brandy J. Great host. And keep coming back and listening. Couldn't do it without you. So, have a blessed day and peace. Hey, everybody. What you're about to listen to next is some music that I put together for a song that I wrote, and I'm sharing it with you here today. So please enjoy. Thank you.